Hey yo, Cosplay Tokyo viewers! Dragon Cat here! So, more about difference of cosplay culture between Japan and ta-da-dan, today we have Alex from Australia. So today is about the cosplay difference of cosplay convention between Japan and Australia, since this one is a native from the kangaroo land, or is it drop bear now?
Both.
Drop bear line? Okay.
Both.
Drop bear is dangerous. Anyways, I never interview you actually. This is the first.
No, yes, this is a first.
Yeah.
It's always been either one of us talking on camera instead of the both of us talking, except for that first video we made with Cosplay Tokyo, which was incredibly dreadful.
It is!
Yes.
It's a learning curve.
Everyone's got to start somewhere.
Yep. Anyway, well, this is first time in a long time we appear in video together. So we are Cosplay Tokyo, and we're gonna talk today about the difference between how was it cosplay in convention in Japan and Australia. So Alex, what's the biggest difference?
Alright, well, I'm from Adelaide, which is a smaller capital in Australia, not one of the big East Coast cities like Melbourne or Sydney. So I'm going to really talk about cosplay conventions in in Adelaide, as opposed to places like Melbourne or Sydney, which have big conventions like Smash. What's the one in Sydney? Supernova, I think, is the one in Sydney. Anyways, in terms of attending conventions in Australia, which I guess would be typical of many other cosplay conventions, it's very different from ones in Tokyo, from what I've seen, like the big ones like Comic-Con, Tonari Cos, Tokyo Game Show.
How different how?
Well, for one thing, I mean, here, cosplayers can really only cosplay in their designated cosplay area, and they have to stake out their spot. And as you may have seen or heard, people line up to take photos of cosplayers, and you can kind of tell like the appeal of a cosplayer by the line. Usually the girls with skimpy clothing get the biggest lines, or the wall of photographers.
Oh, yep, that's true. Happened to me. Like, last time I cosplayed Skimpy, like, a guy just like, zzz, and it's like, oh, where this guys came from?
Yeah.
So, does that happen in Australia?
No, in Australia, and I'm guessing in the US as well, what happens is cosplayers just freely roam around the convention hall, just wandering around, having fun with your friends. And then every so often you might get stopped by someone saying, hey, excuse me, can I take your picture? Usually it's just a selfie, you just like that, and just get a selfie with a cosplayer. Sometimes
you pose a bit, and then, like, have your snap taken.
Yeah. Sometimes you might get approached by amateur and professional photographers who want to take photos with you. I'm with the group called I Got Superpowers, my Adelaide-based group of cosplay photographers. What we do is we would take cosplayers out from the convention hall to a more secluded space so we can have a more intimate, like, mini photo shoot. And we get some really cool photos from that. And the rules really aren't as strict in Japan as opposed to Australia.
So there is more rules in Japan versus in Australia?
Yeah, I mean, I guess so, because Japan is that kind of a place, like, rules for everything, everything's all formal and stiff and codified, very lawful, as opposed to the West, where it's a bit more relaxed and laid back and a little bit chaotic.
Laid back Australia. We're talking about Australian level of laid back. So, like, you know, like, how it usually goes? Like, you mean if you're in Australia, like, you come as a photographer, like, how do you usually goes? Versus if you come to Japan, like, you as a photographer, it's like, what did you do?
In terms of going to the convention, I mean, it's kind of similar both ways. Like, you go to the convention, you get your gear together, you get ready, you go out and shoot. Whereas in Japan, there's like a designated area where you can wander around, which can be a blessing sometimes, because, you know, most of the cosplayers are going to be assembled in that area, so there's less of a chance of you missing out on a cool cosplay you want to take pictures of. As opposed to being in Australia, where the cosplayers are spread out everywhere, they're wandering around with their friends, they're moving targets. Sometimes you want to get a photo with them, they're not in exactly the right, most ideal space to take pictures, so you get the typical convention pictures where it's just like you in the middle and like all these random people around on the edges of the photo. For the cosplayers, I guess it's a little bit different, because in Tokyo and Japan, by extension, because of the strict laws, cosplayers, as you well know, have to get changed at the venue.
to go to the venue and change in the venue.
Yeah.
And then after we finish posing and, showing off, we change out in the venue. How about in Australia?
Well, in Australia, laws are much more relaxed, and there's much less of an emphasis on like considering the people around you. I mean, like in Australia, it's screw you, I'll wear whatever I want. I don't care what you think, as long as you're not like breaking any indecency laws, like you're barely covered up. I'm talking like string bikini, you're barely covered. It barely is anything to the imagination.
Dicks in.
You'll be okay. Like, you can come to cosplay, you might be wearing something kind of scary and freaky, but as long as you're not causing any harm, no one can do anything about it, and you'll get away with it.
Are you saying that cosplayers can just cosplay from their house onto the street, into the convention, and then out of the convention just like that?
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Oh,
I've seen it on the streets of Adelaide, like, people will just get up, get dressed in cosplay, and just wander around the central city district, just in cosplay, just because they can. Because they want to. And I mean, like, people might point and look, oh, look, there's a group of nerds dressed up in cosplay. Like, they're harmless. So people don't really worry too much about that.
Wow, that's totally different. Sounds like there's so much more freedom.